hold on. We're not live yet, just a sec. We're not live yet, just a sec. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Maker Mastermind Show. I'm so excited that you're here. Stand by for a second. We're having technical challenges. They're not difficulties. They are happening for us, not to us. Just a second. We're going to fix everything here right now. Okay, just a sec. All right, you guys, hello. I apologize for our technical difficulties. You guys are the best because you understand that all this technology is new, and that no matter what, we are having a great time learning not only the information that we're sharing and learning together and these great guests that we have and my co-host Christine, but we're also learning how to think on our feet and just make stuff work, right? Because that's just what you have to do when you're an entrepreneur. So welcome to episode 3 of the Maker Mastermind Show. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Donna Maria Coles-Johnson, the founder and CEO at indiebusinessnetwork.com, and I am thrilled to have you here. My co-host Christine. Hi, Christine.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Donna Maria. Hey, Anne Marie.
Christine is here. She is, as you know, like the content marketing queen at Basics Marketing, and she's also the owner of the Bath and Body Care products line at Basics Botanicals out of New York. And we're so excited to have her. She's my head coach too at Indie Business Network, and I'm always thrilled to work with her. So we have a limited amount of time with our amazeballs guest today, so we're going to dive right in. I'm going to introduce you to Anne Marie Faiola. Now, I could go on for a really long time, but I won't. But there's some key things that you need to know about Anne Marie so we understand who we have the honor of speaking with today. Anne Marie Faiola is the founder and CEO at brambleberry.com, soap making supplies. You can also find her by Googling Soap Queen. Just Google it, you'll find it. So much fun and happiness with the Brambleberry brand. She is also the leader at the Coalition for Handcrafted Cosmetics, and you can find that at Coalition for Handcrafted Entrepreneurs. That's what it is. I'm sorry, the Coalition for Handcrafted Entrepreneurs.com. She does a fantastic job of advocating on behalf of small businesses on Capitol Hill and elsewhere. And she does a wonderful job too of sending updates to you via email to let you know what's going on in terms of cosmetics legislation. So make sure at some point that you sign up for that if you don't already receive it. She is also the author of several books. Her most recent one, which can be ordered now at Amazon.com, is called Your Best Day Ever. You can check out the details at bestdayever.com and follow there. But for today, Anne Marie is here in her capacity as the leader of the Coalition of Handcrafted Entrepreneurs, and we're going to be talking with her about the legislation that was introduced last week in the cosmetics arena. Welcome, Anne Marie. We're so excited to have you, and I am unmuting Anne Marie's audio because
that's great. Can you hear me now?
And producer, right? Hey, Anne Marie.
Hi. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. How is the sound coming through? Are we good?
We're good.
You look great and you sound great. Christine, you got it? Everybody out there?
Yeah, we're all good.
Okay,
yes,
so
we're ready to go. So listen, as we move forward, if you have questions, you can post them in the comments and we will see if we can get to them. If we can't get to them live, we will get to them sometime after the show. But Anne Marie is going to give us a basic overview of what's included in this legislation, including the pieces of it that exempt or give different sort of treatment to small and home-based businesses. So Anne Marie, is that good? We can get started there.
Let's get started. So for those of you that haven't been following FDA issues closely over the years, Donna Maria and I and several other stakeholders have really been working on FDA related issues for a decade now. It was 9 years ago, I think, that we made our first trip to Washington, D.C. And that's because there was a bill out at the time that would have completely rewritten how cosmetics were produced and the paperwork and the fees. And we really went there with a mind towards small business exemptions. And our position has not changed on that. My position has not changed, which is if legislation needs to be done, and I don't believe it does. Cosmetics are inherently safe. We indie makers make great products, but there is a increasingly strong drumbeat going towards legislation. And we've been watching bills now for a decade. And so we know that something is eventually going to pass. And so this particular Senator Feinstein's Collins bill, Donna Maria and I, and Kayla Fioravanti, I think Leila Barker was there. Like, this was back in the day. We met with Senator Feinstein's team over 8 years ago. She has been working on this legislation for 8 years. She's deeply committed to it, and she's very excited about moving it forward. And in that time period, we have really worked to educate her team about why handcrafted producers are different, how we are different from the Procter & Gamble's, what these particular jobs mean to someone that makes handcrafted products, and why paperwork and fees don't work very well when you're thinking small producers. And I'm really pleased that in this current draft legislation, and what legislation is before it goes anywhere is the Senate comes up with a bill, the House comes up with the bill, they try and make their bills work. They both have to pass, the Senate and the House, before they go to the president to be signed. So we're like 30% of the way to a bill being signed. So this doesn't mean you need to change your packaging tomorrow. It doesn't mean you need to throw away all your nail polish tomorrow. We are a year, 3 years, 5 years away from something being passed. This is a long journey, but it's exciting to see that this new bill has small business exemptions, because what we have noticed is that all the bills tend to build on each other. So giving us this exemption level now hopefully gives us a floor for which, if this bill didn't pass, other bills would build upon. So let's go over what these small business exemptions look like. So a very small business in this bill is defined as $500,000 or below. So if you gross $500,000 or below, you have to follow existing law, meaning you still have to label your products. You still need to correctly identify them. You still can't make drug claims. You still have to make safe products, that kind of thing. But you're exempt from anything in this bill. You don't have to file with the FDA. You don't need to pay any fees. There are no paperwork. If you're doing over $500,000 a year, all the way to $2 million. So you're in the $500,000 in revenue, which congratulations if you are. I have several customers that are, so it's very exciting to me to see small businesses really succeeding. If you're in the $500,000 to $2 million range, you need to do a simplified registration. The simplified registration is very simple. It's name, address that you're doing your production facilities in, and categories of products made. The reason they want to know the categories of products made is because the FDA Senator Feinstein and Senator Collins have identified multiple carve-outs for products that they consider to be more serious than, say, a lotion or a soap. And I should add that nothing in this legislation changes the current carve-outs for soap. Soap is still soap is still soap. So those categories are, if it's intended for eye application. So this will be a specific eye cream or a specific mascara or eyeshadow. If it's a lip product containing color. If it's intended for internal use, and I can't think of any cosmetics intended for internal use that wouldn't fall under vitamins or cosmeceuticals, but just in case. And then if it alters the appearance for greater than 24 hours. So that's tattoos. So if you're in the $500 to $2 million mark, you're registering no matter what. If you're in the $500,000 to $2 million mark, and you're making any of those difficult, those products of concern, you will have additional paperwork to go through. And then finally, you will have to do adverse event reporting, meaning an adverse event reporting, let's define that.
Okay, Anne-Marie just froze. Did I freeze too?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay, I know she'll be back, you guys, because from time to time there's a glitchy thing wherever we might be, and it'll freeze us. So we know that Anne-Marie is going to come back. So she was talking about serious adverse events. And she was about to define exactly what that is. And I know she'll do that when she comes back. But just so you know, everyone has to inform the FDA about serious adverse events that happen to their customers or the people that buy their products with respect to their products. And these are like high-level events. This is not, Anne-Marie is, she'll come back, I know she will. This is not, I bought your product and do you want me to reconnect? Yes. Anne-Marie, I hope you can hear me. Go ahead and click the link again and it'll bring you back in to our feed. So we're gonna wait for that. In the meantime, guys, like I said, if you have questions, I want you to go ahead and post them below so that we can get to them. I know Jennifer's going to be sending me emails or texting me about questions that come up so we can make sure that if we can answer them on the live feed, we do that. So we'll see if we can get Anne-Marie back. And if so, we will definitely have her here, of course. And she was so excited to come and join us here today. And she has just been working on this stuff for such a long time. As she said, 9 years ago, it was the spring of 2008 when the first piece of legislation was introduced. And so, yes, it's been a while. Robin Walthour has a question. Jennifer just texted me. Does this apply to companies that bring products into the U.S.? And the answer is, if you sell products in the U.S., you are subject to the FDA. Like, it doesn't really matter where you make them. If you sell them to consumers inside the United States, which is who the FDA is concerned about, then yes, the regulations apply to you, and the law of the land generally applies to you, just like it does to everyone else who's selling products to consumers here in our country. So that's the answer to that question. Thank you for that, Robin.
Good question.
Yes, it was a good question. And so while we're waiting for Anne-Marie to come back, she'll get to the more definitive definition of what a serious adverse event is. But I think it's important for you to know that it doesn't matter how much money you make or don't make in your business, that you need to report these kinds of events to the FDA for safety reasons. And, we've seen some of the things that have happened with other companies, and they have an impact on everyone, and they have an impact on small businesses as well, because the FDA's job is to know about these things when they happen so that they can take action along with the maker of a product or the manufacturer of a product to ensure that it doesn't happen again. It's not like a, big, huge, we're going to stomp down and, make your life miserable. It's nothing like that. It's really just in partnership with the people that make and sell products in the US. They want to make sure that they know that we are taking care of things if there is an issue. Now, we all know that for us as small makers and handmade entrepreneurs, this like hardly ever happens. I mean, I don't even think I've ever heard of it happening. And so the chances are so slim, which is good because it means that it probably won't happen to you. But it also, just reminds us all of the importance of making sure that we are being as safe as we possibly can with how we make things and with what sorts of things we are putting in the products that we are selling to people. So that's the first thing, the serious adverse events. And you know what, if I can't get Anne-Marie back by video, we're going to get her back by phone. So give me a second. Christine.
Some of the things I wanted to ask, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, let's see if we can get her back.
Yeah, because I know, and we're talking about scaling too. So, we're here to, stop making stuff and start making money. So, I know that a lot of times, indie makers are get a little scared when they hear about this, this type of legislation, and it's not meant to do that. And especially as you start to scale up as a business, these are important things definitely for you to know. And yeah, it's for safety, it's for, for lack of a better word, helping you stay in line with the rules and the regulations that we have to follow. So you don't have to make any changes, really major changes as you grow your business. And this has to do with content too. So I know we're waiting for Anne-Marie to come back, and
I think what we have here is Anne-Marie on the phone.
Okay, cool.
So what we're going to do is make sure that she can speak and that there's no feedback. Anne-Marie?
Yes, absolutely. I have no idea why we got disconnected, but let's just pick up where we left off, which is adverse event reporting, shall we?
Yes, let's pick up there. Christine, can you hear her?
Yeah, can you turn up the volume just ever so slightly?
Okay, let's do
And
that.
put it near the speaker a little bit.
My mic here.
Makes it
Anne
real
Marie,
clear.
one more time.
Yes. So let's go ahead and talk about adverse event reporting.
Let's
Sound
do
good?
that. Yes.
So adverse event reporting, this is one of the areas that it doesn't matter what size you are, whether you're selling $20,000 or whether you're selling $500,000 or $2 million. Adverse event reporting does have to be done. And let's talk about what an adverse event is. It is not someone slipped in the tub because they were using your soap and they fell. It is not, I used your lotion and it gave me a rash one time. It is not simple things like that. An adverse event is considered by the FDA to be something that, one, kills you. So literally, did your product kill somebody? Two, requires hospitalization. Three, something that causes you to lose your hair. Or four, causes you to have recurrent and persisting rashes that do not go away. Now, we all know that the products that indie producers make are generally extremely safe and inert, and it would be highly unlikely if any of those things ever happened. However, if those things do happen, the FDA does require that you report them within 15 days. And then finally, this particular legislation codified GMP, good manufacturing practices, into the law of record. Meaning, right now, good manufacturing practices are considered to be voluntary, meaning you should do them. It's a good idea to do them. It's a really good idea to do them from a business standpoint because they help you make a better, more safe product that's more consistent, but they're not illegal to not follow. And this would make it, if you were doing the $500,000 to $2 million range, it would make it illegal to not follow good manufacturing practices. However, Senator Feinstein and Collins have worked very hard to ensure that the good manufacturing practices will be modified for very small businesses. And so what that means, we're not sure exactly, but that's going to be up to the SBA, Small Business Administration, to help figure out. And those are things like making sure that, for example, right now GMP has a multiple people must weigh a batch, and that wouldn't fly in a small business environment because, well, you might only be the only person weighing the batch yourself because you might only be the only person working. So things like that will end up being changed. There's also one more really important exemption that is a nod, especially to our larger milk producing products companies. So people that have outbuildings that they're already raising dairy goats on and the like, that there is a $1 million home-based exemption, meaning if you are making products at home, you do not have to worry about doing any of the registration or anything like that for the micro producers if you're doing $1 million or less. And so that's a nice nod to small business.
Yes. And while Anne-Marie is sharing, I have gone to the Coalition of Handcrafted Entrepreneurs.com website, and we are actually scrolling through as she speaks her new update from a couple days ago. And where, as you can see, I have highlighted here on the screen the private residence that Anne-Marie was just telling us about. So that's what we have on our screen right there. So Anne-Marie, thank you so much for that overview. So you've gone through the private residence exemptions, the simplified facility registration, good manufacturing practices, serious adverse event reporting, and a very small business $500,000 exemption. So can I ask you if the color cosmetic things that you listed, do they apply to the very small under $500,000 businesses or no?
So this is a really interesting question, and it's one that we at the Coalition have been delighted and surprised about, because the initial framework that we talked about with Senator Feinstein and Senator Collins said, look, if you make, can you see me yet?
That's okay. There's just an audio feed either on your phone or. We're going to fix that just a sec. Let's see. I've got Anne-Marie on the phone here. You can still hear me, Christine, right?
Yes, I can hear you. You're fine.
Okay, Anne-Marie, there's a. Let me see if I can. Okay, looks like you might be back. Hold on a second. Anne-Marie's back. We get to see her beautiful smile.
Oh,
again.
yay.
Everyone.
There she is.
Here she comes. Here
Excellent.
she comes. There we go. Okay, so we're going to shut off the phone after I see her face. There she is. Okay. We are back and we are good.
Okay, you can hear me fine?
Perfect.
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Woo! We're winning. Okay, so let's talk about let's talk about color cosmetics, and let's talk about that small producer. So we were talking to Senator Feinstein's and Senator Collins' offices. They were very, 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 very insistent that if there was
Oh, no.
because that is a product that stays on your body 24 hours or more. And that was one of the things we had to give on. And so we said, okay. And then when we see the draft legislation, or not the draft legislation, the legislation as drafted, it's very clear that if you make under $500,000 a year, you don't have any sort of registration or anything other than following existing law, even if you're in the difficult categories, even if you're in those, you make nail polish or you make lipstick that has color. And so this is a gift, and the longer that stays in there, the more certain that will be that that becomes our law. And $500,000 blanket exemption for all classes would cover 99% of our industry, and I would be thrilled if that happened.
Yes. Let's have a happy dance in advance. And thanks to you for all of your efforts, and your colleagues, of course, as well. Anne-Marie, there is something called preemption that is also included in this legislation. And may I just like praise, to wherever about this, because this is something that I have been feeling so very strongly about since the very beginning. Anne-Marie, can you explain what preemption is and how it fits into this piece of proposed legislation?
Absolutely. So states' rights versus federal. This is something that is a time immemorial since the United States was formed. It's been a question of when does the federal government get to make laws and when do the states get to make laws? What is a state right versus a federal law that supersedes it? And so certain things always supersede it, right? Federal transportation laws always supersede individual states' rights, right? Federal always wins. There are certain areas where federal doesn't always win. For example, in medical issues, different states have different licensing requirements and different rules. And what we were finding was that the consumer advocacy groups were starting to try and go to their state legislatures to create new laws that they could not get passed at the federal level that would change how cosmetics were dealt with in their state. And so you see those laws in Washington state, which is where I'm at. You see those laws in Florida, especially, and you see those laws in California. Now you can imagine how difficult it would be for a small producer to do 50 different states worth of laws, right? Like we sell on Etsy, we sell everywhere. People sell on eBay, people sell on Amazon Handmade. Like that's not tenable. If you're Procter & Gamble and you're making 500 million shampoos, you can totally do that, right? You just formulate to the lowest common denominator and you're done. For a small business though, that's not feasible. And so yes, Donna Maria, like you're alluding to, this law does contain a nod to preemption, meaning if the law is on the books in the state at the date and time that this legislation passes, the Feinstein-Collins framework, then that state law will stay. So that means Florida will stay, means Washington state will stay, and it means California will stay. But no other states will be able to go more stringent than this federal Feinstein-Collins legislation is, which is, again, that's a huge gift for time. That's a huge gift for paperwork. That's a really big deal. And it's something that gives me also a lot of peace of mind. because I'm like you, I don't want my customers to have to try and figure out how Oregon is different than Texas and how all these different states are. I want them to formulate great products all the time without a mind towards, well, in California, people think this, but in Texas, people think this. And so I have to formulate, again, to the lowest common denominator. So the preemption is a gift.
It is, and I'm so excited. You explained it so well, and we really appreciate that. And I'm just so excited that there is going to be what there is now, which is basically one place to go to find out what the laws are for the products that you make, with the exception of those 3 states. And so we are really excited about that. So Anne-Marie, is there a new requirement having to do with putting the ingredients that are contained in a product on the website where they are sold?
So if you're in so first of all, you should be doing that anyways, right? We make better products. We make products with real oils, ingredients you can pronounce, and we make products that are readable. You can read the ingredient labels in our products. So we should be doing that anyways from a marketing standpoint. But yes, transparency is going to be very important in this next phase. One of the things that got left out was fragrance. You may know that consumer advocacy groups have really been fighting for fragrance transparency. Remember, when you put a fragrance oil in your product, you just have to write fragrance because there's so many different aroma chemicals that go into it. And fragrance still gets to be called fragrance, which is great. But if you are making a product and you are selling it and you're in that $500,000 to $2 million range, you do need to put your ingredients on the website, just like you're doing on your label. And again, I think this is a thing of beauty because we make better products. We should shout our ingredient list from the rooftops. They're amazing.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And also from a marketing perspective, from the work on you, if you have to answer emails and tweets and Instagram posts asking what are the ingredients in a product, and you don't have a place to send them, they're listed right there on the website, you're pulverizing some of the efficiencies in your business anyway. So it's a great idea to do it anyway. So thank you for sharing that, though, Anne-Marie. We have a question from Delanda Sykes. Delanda, thank you for being here and for asking your question about colors. She wants to know about the difference between colors that are like herbal types of colors, which are, different from FDA certified colors. Can you share a little bit about those distinctions and how we incorporate them into our manufacturing processes?
Sure. So colors are a really interesting area that the FDA has guidelines that they've issued that in practice they don't really work. So they have batch certified colors. So those are like Lakes FD&C colors. They have, and then there's oxides that are pigments, and those sometimes get batch certified, sometimes they don't. Then there's like neons, which sometimes are made out of not FD&Cs and also not oxides. And then there's the herbal colorants. And herbal colorants often get into your products because they are generally recognized as safe as a food grade product, or they've been in use for so long that everybody knows it's safe. For example, I don't think anybody's done any safety testing on olive oil. Like ever. You've never tested olive oil to see what it does on your skin, but we use it and we know it's safe. And so some of these herbal colorants have been grandfathered in like that. That said, if you add an herb with the intent to color a product, the FDA is very clear that that's not approved. They only want you to be using FD&C colors, neons, and pigments and oxides. Like that's what they want you to be using for color. However, if you added the herb as say you're doing beet and you really want to make a lip product, and you add the beetroot to your lip product because you want it as a thickener and stabilizer, and you want it as an antioxidant, and it just happens to impart color, yay. That gets around it. Now, do I expect that to change in the future? I think that's a low priority for the consumer advocacy groups. That doesn't seem to be something that's really on their radar. Their ingredients of concern really tend to go around preservatives. If you look at this legislation, it calls on the FDA to establish safe thresholds for 5 different ingredients to start with. And right now, safe thresholds are, it's a twofold process. For ingredients, safe thresholds are determined by 1, the manufacturer. They do a lot of testing themselves. And then 2, the Cosmetic Ingredients Review Board, which is a board comprised of between 12 to 15 individuals, none of whom are industry. We are talking like the president of Harvard Medical School type brains that go in and they look at all available studies for these different ingredients, and then they come up with safe usage rates. And what this particular Feinstein's-Collins bill does is take that power out of this quasi-independent, sort of overseen by government, but could still be influenced by private organizations, and moves a little bit of that more into the FDA power. And so they have required that 5 ingredients per year get tested to have safety limits established. And there are things like propylparaben. We know what the safety limits for propylparaben is. The EU did all those studies. The American Cancer Society's done studies. Like, we know what that is. Quaternium-15, that's another preservative. It's been used for 40 years. Diacetyl urea, that's another thing that's always on the tail end, another preservative type product and stabilizer product. So they have 5 of these ingredients, and they are wanting the FDA to really take a closer look at those. Now, what this will do, though, for the end consumer, what it will do for us as makers, that will give us guidelines and thresholds to point to that have been verified by a governing body, by a governmental agency, as opposed to a quasi-governmental but still private partnership. So that will give a little bit more reassurance, I think, on the consumer standpoint, and it will quit the narrative of cosmetic laws haven't been reformed since the 1930s. Your products aren't safe. In Europe, they've banned 1,500 ingredients. It will lend some more credibility to the United States framework of how we determine what is safe to go in products.
Excellent. Yeah. And what you said at the very beginning too was so important for us to collectively point out, and that is that we have an amazing collection of makers and handmade entrepreneurs all over this country making incredible products and innovating like crazy. I mean, we see large companies, don't we, you guys? We see them copying some of the great things that we're doing. Okay, so they have their eyes on us, and our customers have our eyes on us because they're getting used to the fact that they can trust us, that we are transparent. We are all over social media. You can oftentimes talk to us directly, like on a live webinar like this, or by phone, or in a very small customer service team. So we are making a mark. You guys are really, really changing the face of cosmetics. You have been for years. And certainly being able to have legislation where there's an exemption big enough to allow you to grow up to $500,000 a year. I mean, the sky's the limit, because once you get to that point, you can start thinking about, okay, do I want to take on additional things that I need to do so that I can be more financially successful? But if you want to stop at $500,000, you can do that and still have an awesome business and a great platform from which you can launch other businesses as well. So I'm just so excited about the work that you guys have done and carving out that exemption and other exemptions as well. So thank you so much for breaking all of this down for us. I think Christine had one question before we move on. Christine?
Yeah, I do. And again, Anne Marie, I just have to say too, what you guys have been doing for the for the maker industry has been really amazing. And I know, and we hear a lot through the Indie Business Network. One of the big things, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit more, is the labeling requirements. Because so many people, they want to, you've talked about, we can't make claims, and we know that we can't make claims. There's also been, and it sparked this question when you were talking about herbal fragrances, using the colorant or using, like, for example, a beetroot for its other properties. There's a question as far as the labeling requirements when it comes to saying, for example, the herbals. We've known for eons, what chamomile does for the body. But how do we go about talking about that or writing that in our labels so it doesn't create question in our labeling and for, I guess I just like the requirements. We're not making claims.
Yeah.
It seems so unfair that we are unable to say chamomile is great for redness, will soothe your skin. And instead we end up in this kind of no man's land of, has chamomile. People have said for hundreds of years that it might cure redness. I can't say that. And so it seems so unfair that we end up in that position. But the FDA is very clear that if you make any sort of claim that the product you are selling does anything other than alter your physical appearance, if you claim that it changes your physical appearance, if it changes the dermis in any way, then they can go after you for claims. Now, them going after you for claims is everything from writing a letter, which is scary, like it goes into public record, that's scary, to showing up at your house and inspecting you, as we have heard multiple stories of that for the last few years. The FDA is a really big agency. They are tasked with food and drugs and medical devices. Cosmetics is not a main focus of what they do because we produce safe products. Nonetheless, they are expected to still look for that kind of stuff. And so they are looking on the internet. Typically, and this is typically, they're getting the most egregious offenders though. They're going for the doTERRA, they're going for the Young Living who are saying, who have sellers that say that their essential oils cure AIDS. So they're typically going for the most egregious offenders. I rarely see them, I've seen it twice now in the last few years. I rarely see them going for small producers that are genuinely trying to do a good job that just made one or two semantics errors. And when you consider how many producers are out in the marketplace, many years ago, Wholesale Supplies Plus and Essential Wholesale and Brambleberry combined our customer data list with a third party that wouldn't share information back and forth, and then tried to see where there was overlap in our customer bases to see if we could get a real sense of the industry. And we estimate there's over 300,000 small women-owned businesses in the United States making soap and cosmetics, generally from their home or an outbuilding. And then you think about how many times you've heard of an FDA visit. I've only heard of one in the last 12 months to a small producer. So yes, I want us to always be on the right side of integrity. I always want handcrafted producers to toe the line when it comes to the law and saying this will make your skin feel smooth, silky, like using those words, never saying this will take years off your age or this cures psoriasis. Never doing that. And the FDA has gone so far as to look at the reviews on your website that you allow to stay up and has cited people for those reviews. So if for example, I formulated about a decade ago now, a soap that's designed for psoriasis sufferers. That's what I formulated it for specifically. This particular company sells 5,000 bars of this soap a month, but they are not allowed to say what it is good for. They've let the consumers kind of do the talking in little groups and little forums, and they've let marketing materials like on the Dr. Oz show make exorbitant, crazy claims, but they've never done it themselves. And like Brambleberry is facing this right now. We're getting ready to launch a beautiful line of limited edition essential oil blends that are designed by a well-known aromatherapist that's written several books in the industry. I want to say the Sleepy Time blend will put you to sleep because it will. We all know it will, but I can't say that.
Yeah.
Then I'm competing against doTERRA, Young Living, and all these companies that do say it.
Right.
So to answer your question, this really goes down to integrity, always wanting to do the right thing, always wanting to be on the side of the law. 2, how does it sound in front of a jury? If you ever really got in front of a jury, how does that actually sound? And then 3, your personal aptitude for risk. You know, some people speed every single day and they don't get caught, or they've decided that one speeding ticket in 7 years is fine. I don't. I'm a no speeder, right? So it's a personal aptitude for risk with kind of your personal, like, where are you comfortable? We all know the rule's not fair. And we all know people are breaking it. So where are you personally comfortable?
Yeah.
But I always err on the side of legality, because there's nothing that's going to shut your business down faster than the government.
About
Good
that.
point. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, and
Thank you for
such great
explaining that.
points there. Thank you for that in-depth explanation. And, everyone, this is where the rubber meets the road, where your leadership is concerned. You are the leader of your business. And as Anne-Marie said, the buck stops with you. You've got to decide. But I want to encourage you to decide and be definitive about that definition and that decision that you make, so that you can then sort of stop worrying about it and move on. And I think that's really, really important, because so many of us will get stopped with that claim thing and then be wishy-washy for years. If you like the risk idea, I'm not saying to do it and break the law, but as Anne-Marie said, you've got to decide what you're going to do. You're going to speed or you're not going to speed, so that you can move on. And the other thing I want to point out too is that there is a procedure at the FDA to get your products approved to make those claims. Now, it is a pricey procedure. However, it's an option. And I have known very small business owners who scale down to one product, and that's where they spend their money. And they want to get it approved as, eczema cream, whatever it is. And by the way, sunscreen is also looked at by the FDA like a drug. So if you're saying that your lip balm is sunscreen, SPF, whatever, it's a drug. But we've had former members who are now larger companies who scaled down to one or two products, went through the drug process at the FDA, and now they have one or two products that they're selling like crazy with the blessing of the FDA, and they're moving forward with their businesses. So again, it boils down to what it is that you want to do and where you want to lead your business to. And we have so many options to define that, right, Anne-Marie? It's like, don't worry about what they're doing, what that's doing. Look at the legislation, look at, obviously, if and when it becomes law, look at the law, and then decide what you want to do. And having this piece of draft legislation is helpful, because if something passes, it will kind of look like this, right? So you can kind of, put your plan together for the next 3 or 4 years around the draft. Okay, it's just a draft, but still, it's a real clue about what is potentially on the pipe.
And even the $500,000 to $2 million range, those registration requirements are not onerous. There's no fee. That's still a simplified registration. So after 2 million, sure, start paying attention. But let's all hope that you get to 2 million. That would be amazing if you did. So up to $2 million covers 99.9% of our small handcrafted industry and leaves 300,000 small women-owned businesses intact.
So exciting. Anne-Marie, I know we have to let you go shortly. Tell us what happens next. What is the next thing that's scheduled or going to be scheduled to happen with this proposed legislation?
So this is not over by a long shot. First of all, the House now needs to draft a companion bill in the House. I have seen that companion bill draft. It's not even close to coming out. The exemption levels are slightly lower, so we've got some work to do. Not terrible, not too scary, not too scary. It's 5 years ago, Donna, Maria, you and I would be looking at this House bill and just being like, yes, we'll take it, right? Because it's not bad. So there's a House bill that needs to come out. The House bill needs to match the Senate bill before either of them can vote. So the Senate has to pass their bill, so they have to vote on it. The Senate's really busy right now with ACA reform, the Health Care Act reform, and then they're really busy with tax reform. This is not a high priority for the Senate. But the Senate needs to pass it. Then the House needs to pass their version of the bill. Then that bill comes back to the Senate so that they can smash the two bills together and hopefully pass it and then put it on the president's desk. Now, President Trump has shown to be extremely anti-regulation in general. So it's hard to say if he would actually pass it. He's never said anything either way about cosmetics. I don't think it's even on his radar. So it's entirely possible he wouldn't even sign the bill, especially when you look at who is Senator Feinstein is a Democrat. Senator Collins is a moderate Republican. So good for them for coming together to work on something together. On the House side, it really depends on who's going to bring it forward. So Senate side needs to pass, House side needs to pass. They both need to pass. President Trump needs to sign it. In order for the Senate side to even pass, though, they have to get more co-sponsors on the legislation. So they have to get additional senators to look at the legislation and say, I'm on board. I'll do this. Absolutely. I think this is good. You have my vote. And they have to do that publicly already before the bill comes up to vote, because it's called a co-sponsor. So there's a lot more work to do. I would be surprised if this passed this year. As much as I would very much like to get back to the business of just creating products and helping micro entrepreneurs start businesses and change the economy and change their communities for the better, I think that 20 to 30% of my time is going to still be spent on this over the next 12 to 24 months. I just don't see anything passing in this political environment. They've got much bigger priorities right now. Now, there
is so much going on. So much going on, and you know, Mr. Trump is quite unpredictable either way. So, so good for sharing that. And so you heard it right here, everyone. A really good overview of what we need to be concerned about and what we need to enjoy the opportunity of being able to do, and that is to grow our businesses up to the $500,000 mark without having any additional regulations. So when it comes time to, look at what the other House of Congress does with this legislation, when it looks like something is, finally pieced together, Anne-Marie, I know, and the Coalition of Handcrafted Entrepreneurs will be there to tell us about it. And so make sure you visit the website at Coalition of Handcrafted Entrepreneurs and sign up. There's a sign up button for you to get Anne-Marie's updates. She sends them out regularly, and they are really good, high-level overviews that are easy to digest and easy to read. She's really good at breaking things down, as you've all heard here. So Anne-Marie, thank you so much for joining us. And also, everyone, brambleberry.com for your supplies, and of course, best day ever. We all want to have the best day ever, don't we? All the time. And Anne-Marie is leading the way in that regard as well. We're going to save some of that for another show, because that is another show. But in the meantime, check it out at bestdayever.com and see what's there and sign up for everything there too. So Anne-Marie, thanks. Christine, any parting words from you?
Just Anne-Marie, thanks. This is really important for people, especially for the small handmade makers. So this has been so informative, and I'm just thankful that you're part of this, because it really does help.
Well, so excited, everyone. Thank you, Anne-Marie. I'm going to be over in the Indie Business Network group right after we cut off here, so we can have further discussion about this and answer more questions. I'll be there. I know, Anne-Marie, you've got to go. We thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.